Hi, this is Danielle Kepperling, host of the Practical Preservation Podcast. And I wanted to tell you about something exciting that Jonathan and I have been working on. It's the Kepperling Preservation Hub, and it is an online resource center that you can find a lot of answers to your questions. Um, it's how to blog post, videos, links with resources, downloadable PDF books, one about common mistakes that people make, and one about finding a contractor. There's training videos. There's also a podcast transcript archive. There's a one on one consult with me. And twice a month, we're going to have virtual coffee breaks where you can jump on a Zoom with me and Jonathan and have your questions answered. Sometimes we'll also have special guests that will be experts in their specific trade that will be able to also answer your questions. And for a limited time, you can get the founder's rate, which is $10 off per month for the lifetime of your membership. And when you figure it out, it's like getting a few months a year for free. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you about that and let you know that we're very excited. We've been working hard on it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Send a message through one of our social media channels, send me an email. Call, however it works to reach out. But we hope that you'll join us in the hub, and we look forward to getting to know you and your house a little better.
Thank you for tuning in to the Practical Preservation Podcast. Please take a moment to visit our website, practicalpreservationservices.com, for additional information and tips to help you restore your historical home. If you've not done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, and also like us on Facebook. Welcome to the Practical Preservation Podcast, hosted by Danielle and Jonathan Kepperling. Kepperling Preservation Services is a family-owned business based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, dedicated to the preservation of our built architectural history for today's use as well as future generations. Our weekly podcast provides you with expert advice specific to the unique needs of renovating a historic home, educating by sharing our From the Trenches preservation knowledge and our guests' expertise, balancing modern needs while maintaining the historical significance, character, and beauty of your period home.
Today on the Practical Preservation Podcast, I have with me Dominish Miller, who is from the HomeTown History Podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me about your background.
Sure. So during the day, I am the Third Circuit Court of Appeals librarian for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, and I'm based out of Harrisburg for that job. And I also run the Preserving the History of Newburytown Facebook page, the Lewisberry Area History Lovers group, and Hometown History with Domi and Jamie, and that lives online. So by day, I'm a librarian, but I really consider myself a historian.
Okay, very good. And why history? Was history always something you were interested in, or?
Yeah, I think my family's been in the Newburytown area my whole life, dating back to the 1700s, really. And my grandparents knew everybody in town. They knew a lot of the history of the town. So I feel like I just picked that up naturally. Mm-hmm. And then I became really interested in the Civil War in middle school. And that really got me into reenacting and first-person impressions as far as the historical side of things go. And I was always the type of person that was interested in my family history. I remember as a child, one of my Girl Scout badges was you had to create a family tree. And I thought that was one of the most fun projects that we did during brownies. Uh-huh. So that translated into my adult life, being interested in history and genealogy.
Yes. Yeah. I think that, and now it's much easier than it used to be, but digging into those stories and finding the supporting documents is very exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was no ancestry.com back when I did that
Right.
project. So it was calling
You
the
you
older
earned your
family
badge.
members. Yes, absolutely.
um, okay, so tell me about hometown history.
Sure. Jim McClure, who was the editor of the York Daily Record, he introduced Jamie Norpel and I. She has a PhD in American history, and she was a history teacher at Milton Hershey School. And it turns out she actually lives about a quarter mile up the road from me.
Oh
I didn't
goodness.
know that. So she moved into Newberrytown, and Jim introduced us after finding my Preserving the History of Newberrytown Facebook group. He thought that there was a need for young women in the history sphere, especially in York County. So he introduced us and thought that we would make a good podcast. So what we started to do was once a month we would meet up and talk about a York County centric topic. And we would film ourselves on Facebook Live, and then we put it on YouTube. So we're now 5 seasons in, and we have over 100 videos and podcast episodes. So we archive everything on YouTube on Preserving the History, or I'm sorry, on Hometown History. And then we extract the audio. So it's also available in a podcast format. And every month it's a different York County history topic. So we've covered Black history, we've covered Asian history, the Civil War being in York County, we've covered racism and the race riots. So we really try and cover heavy topics, but make them interesting and make them accessible to younger people. Our goal is really to have them be utilized in middle school and high school history classes. If you are a homeschool kid and you don't have the same curriculum maybe that a private or a public school kid would have, you can use these to supplement that education. So basically just making it accessible to the younger crowd, because I know a lot of the history presentations that are happening around the county are really geared toward older people. So it's nice to mix it up and get a different demographic.
So since you're kind of targeting, I mean anybody could listen, but since you're kind of
Mhm.
targeting the middle school, do you make any changes to the topics or the way that you cover it or the way you discuss it?
No, so Jamie being a high school history teacher at Milton Hershey, she worked with the high school and the middle school crowd. She was really good about tailoring our things to make it accessible to the younger people, but also to older people.
Mhm.
So we always start with an agenda and we tell you ahead of time what we're going to cover. We have takeaways so that you can look back and say, okay, yeah, this is what I learned from that 35 to 45-minute episode. If anything, our content, while it is geared toward a younger crowd, it's
Mhm.
not tailored necessarily down to anyone. It's
Mhm.
still, it's the hard-hitting facts. We try, like I said, to hit topics that might be controversial or
Right.
might be a little heavier in topic matter, but we still, it's history. And just because you're younger doesn't mean you don't understand those things, or, you can still understand and learn them the same way as someone that is older.
Right.
I think the way that we're targeting the younger people is more just the platform we're using.
Mhm.
Older people are going out to things like the Elks Club or their local libraries to see presentations,
Mhm.
where younger people are looking for that content online. So the
Yeah.
fact that we're on Facebook Live and YouTube and podcast channels, that's what's making it more accessible to the younger crowd. And that's how we're tailoring it
Yeah.
for those middle school and high school kids.
Yeah, that's really great because I think that I think that those stories need to be told to because I say this pretty often, but I think that everybody needs to see themselves in our history, and
Absolutely.
because you feel more invested. You feel like you have a stake in the game. And one thing that I thought about when you were saying that is I was on a tour of Font Hill, the Mercer Tile Works, and all through there were a couple children in our group like that we were tour, and all through the tour guide kept saying that he died, but he wasn't saying how he died, Mercer, and finally we got to the end, and I'm like, how did he die? Because he kept talking about him dying, and he's like,
Yeah.
oh. he died of an STD, but we didn't want to say that in front of the kids. And I'm like, well, that was before we had antibiotics and penicillin. So yeah, that happened.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. I think people try and shield the younger crowd from history sometimes,
Uh-huh.
but that's the only way you're going to learn. And,
Yeah.
sometimes those nitty-gritty topics, those are the ones that interest the younger crowd the most.
Right. Yeah. I think so. I think, the takeaway, and and I don't think that's happening everywhere, but I think some of the pushback against vaccines and things like that are because we have done such a good job of
Yes.
of eradicating, so we haven't seen them. So that's that. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah.
um so do you seek out the the stories that are maybe a little bit more controversial, or do you just kind of, how do you find what you're going to talk about for the month?
Right. Well, a lot of the topics are topics that Jim McClure has already written about.
Mhm.
We used to call him Mr. York County. He knows all kinds of York County history, and he's not
Yeah.
even from York County. He's a transplant, but
Mhm.
he has written so many articles and books about York County history that it's been easy to pull from his research. But we also will purposely try and seek out stories that we think are influential and that we think are undertold. So
Mhm.
a lot of the things like the race riots, for instance, we have a friend, Bob Mann, who goes to the park right by where it happened, and he's been putting fresh flowers there
Mhm.
at a memorial every single day.
Yeah.
And, he was the one that really brought that topic back into focus and back into the minds of everyone because, you could easily say, hey, that happened so many years ago. Why are we still talking about it?
Mhm.
But it's still relevant today.
Right.
And we've talked about women's history, and you don't have to only talk about women's history during Women's History Month. You don't
Right.
only have to talk about African American history during African American History Month.
Right.
So we try and bring those stories of marginalized people, of stories that might have been forgotten or people are sweeping under the rug, and we try and bring them back to the forefront. But we
Mhm.
also just seek out topics that we find personally interesting.
Right.
I
Yeah.
really love the Civil War, so I've pushed for a few Civil War episodes. Jamie's really into agriculture and homesteading. So those are the things that she personally will push for. So really, we try and balance it with what we like and what we think the audience will like and want to learn
Yeah.
about. And again, we try and find things that have already been researched so that we can pull from that research and we know that what we're talking about is correct and factual.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So you don't have to reinvent everything.
Right,
so
right.
what are the goals of the podcast?
Sure. The goals are just to educate the public, bring the
Mhm.
public together and show them that our community has a rich history and it's worth learning about and it's worth exploring and researching and bringing it to the next generation. We really just want to put a spotlight on New York County and
Mhm.
show people that women do belong in the history sphere and
Yeah.
that we know our stuff and that we do accurate research and that history, it's a hobby, it's a career, and it's worth taking the time to, research these topics and learn about your history, whether it's your personal history or just the history of your community.
Yeah. And I think just thinking about I hear people say they don't like history, but I think
Mhm.
it's the not they don't like to memorize the dates and those things, which yeah, I'm
Sure.
not a huge fan of numbers. So the dates don't usually stay in my head. But I think people like stories, whether or not they realize that that is part of the history or not. I think people like to
Absolutely.
know the stories. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to bring you the human interest piece
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah.
Yes, there's dates and there is some memorization, but we want to dig deeper and find those firsthand stories of York County residents that lived during that time period and
Mhm.
experienced those things. A lot of times we're looking for a diary entry or a newspaper article that was written during that time and has quotes from someone that witnessed the event, and we want to bring that story forward. So it's not just the facts that we're trying to tell you. We're also trying to tell you about the experiences.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So what have you learned anything doing the podcast? Like any stories, or are there any interesting stories you'd like to share?
Sure. I mean, we've learned a lot and over 100 episodes.
Mhm.
I could really talk about. I've learned something from every single one of those episodes. Something that I thought was really interesting, we did an episode on mills, and we talked about how a woman's husband had passed away or her father had passed away and left her the mill. And
Mhm.
it really became her responsibility to take over the mill and the running of it. And that's just something at the time that women didn't do.
Right.
So here she was stepping into a role that, society didn't think that she was prepared for or
Mhm.
educated on. And she actually was. I mean, she grew up around it and she was really successful. And
Yeah.
she really paved the way for other women to be able to step into those roles. I mean, if you
Mhm.
look not that long after that World War II, we had the York Plan in York County where
Mhm.
women really stepped into warehouse positions and machining positions and helped with the war effort. So I like those sort of stories where it's unexpected. Someone takes
Yeah.
on a role that they might not necessarily were meant to do, but then they impress the people
Yeah.
with how well they did and they succeeded. So, I really focus on those human interest pieces and
Mhm.
the legacies that the people in York County have left behind.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that showing those, highlighting those stories, especially, in unexpected places, it really helps it kind of helps to shed light on maybe that I think that there was like after like the 50s, there was like this perception that women didn't work
Hmm.
before, and I think that they always did. I mean, if you have a farm or you have a small family business, you're working. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So even if they didn't go away to go to work, they were working.
Right. That
Yeah.
that bubble of everyone was a Leave It to Beaver housewife,
Right.
that
Yeah.
was for people that were wealthy and had the
Yes.
luxury. Your average York County woman was working, whether it was feeding the family, tending to the house, taking care of the kids, just because she
Right.
was going out to a 9 to 5 job. She
Mhm.
was she was working.
Yes, yes. So, what trends or challenges do you see in like the history sphere or the stories that you're telling?
Sure. I think just misinformation these days. It's so easy to just Google a topic and, click on the first article you see and take it for gospel. I really want people to take the time and to delve deep into the topic that they're looking on.
Mhm.
Don't rely on Chat GPT for everything. Don't
Yeah.
rely on, secondhand information that you've heard because the game of telephone really dilutes things down.
Yes.
So, look for those scholarly articles.
Mhm.
Go to your local library,
Mhm.
go to your local historical society, go to your local history teacher. Even if you've graduated from school, you can go back, and I'm sure your history teacher would be super tickled for you to come back and ask questions and rely
Yes.
on them for resources. So if
Yeah.
anything, I just want people to know, utilize those local resources
Mhm.
and use them because it's a wealth of knowledge. And, those people have taken the time to gather those things, and all they want is people to come use them and ask
Right.
them questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and just being a librarian myself, we want the people to find the information that's accurate and find it in the right way.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I when you said the whisper down the lane, it made me think. I'm part-time executive director of the Historic Preservation Trust in Lancaster County, and um we did a tour at Christmas time, and I don't know, a couple, maybe like in January, I got a call. Everything that you wrote about my building was wrong, and I we need to fix it. And so I'm like, I didn't make anything up. Like I got it all from the file. Like so I made copies of everything. I went and met with her. Here, all of her facts were based on, people's recollections from when they were children 80
Yeah,
years ago. And
yeah.
and I said, well, no, we looked here on the Sanborn maps, we looked here on the in the city directory. Like I pointed to, like there were cited sources. So we diffused that, but I was not looking forward walking into that meeting.
Yeah, it's awkward, and people will take a family history as gospel, and that's
Right.
wonderful. And I'm sure there is a shred of truth to everything, but sometimes you've got to dig a little deeper, and you have to be
Yes.
willing to admit that you're wrong.
Yes. So before we wrap up, is there anything that you thought of while we were talking that you wanted to share, or that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, always be willing to look for history.
Mhm.
So, again, like you said, people sometimes give history a bad rap. It's not all just memorizing dates and facts and timelines. You can go to an old house and take a tour and learn something that you never thought you'd know. It could be a stop on the Underground Railroad. It could be owned by someone really influential in your community. Join the history Facebook groups. Use your local library and go to those presentations. Go to the new history centers that are popping up in all of these different communities. Patronize those places because they're really the keepers of our local history, and they're what's going to keep history going for the next generation. So if anything, it's just utilize those local resources, seek them out, and be an active participant in your local history. If you have family photo albums, if you have family Bibles and diaries, be willing to share that information with other people. That way it doesn't die off with you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very true. Is there anything that you would like to promote?
Sure. Our next hometown history episode is coming up. We're going to be talking about the York Children's Home. So if you go to our Facebook page, Hometown History, Jamie and Domi's Yoko backstory, you can find all of the information about our upcoming episode. That's going to be live streamed on Facebook, and it's also open to the public. So if you come down to York, you can actually watch us live stream that. And then everything's archived on YouTube as well. So if you can't make the live stream or you can't make any episodes in person, you can always watch them back on YouTube. And then we extract the audio and we put it on podcast platforms. So that way, when you're driving around, you can listen to us in the car. If you're sitting at home and you want to listen to something, you can listen to it that way as well.
Okay, very good. And then how can our listeners get in contact with you? I know you listed like the different Facebook groups that you're involved in, and the hometown history, and I'll make sure we have links to those in the show
Thank
notes.
you.
Is there anything else that you think I should list?
My email address is just
Okay.
dominishmiller@gmail.com.
Okay.
As long as you don't go to my spam folder, I'm pretty good about answering, and I'll try and monitor that better in the future. But yeah, if you contact me through social media or my email address, I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Practical Preservation Podcast. The resources discussed during this episode are on our website at practicalpreservationservices.com/podcast. If you received value from this episode and know someone else that will get value from it as well, please share it with them. Join us next week for another episode of the Practical Preservation Podcast. For more information on restoring your historic home, visit practicalpreservationservices.com.